I learned very early what silence sounds like inside a house that is full. It sounds like cutlery placed too hard on a table, like doors closing without a reason, like people talking around you, never to you. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, holding my breath, wondering how a person could feel so invisible while still being watched. My name is Sara. I'm 32 now. Back then, I was just trying to stay small enough to survive my own home. I grew up with my parents and my younger brother Salman. My mother, Farah, had a way of looking through me, as if I was a piece of furniture she had grown tired of. My father, Imran, believed silence was discipline. If he didn't speak to me for days, he thought he was teaching me something. I never knew what lesson I was supposed to learn. I was not a bad child. I cooked when my mother was tired. I cleaned without being asked. I stayed quiet when voices got sharp. Still, there was always a feeling that I was in the way. When Salman spoke, they listened. When I spoke, my mother would sigh, or my father would check his phone. I remember the night I told them I wanted to study further. I had rehearsed the words in my head. My hands were shaking, but my voice stayed calm. My father didn't even look up. He said, "We don't have plans for that." My mother added, "Girls like you should be realistic." That was it. No argument, no discussion, just a door closing. Later, when I started working at a small office, I paid for my own things. My clothes, my transport, sometimes even groceries. Still, my mother introduced me as the difficult one. At family gatherings, relatives asked when I would settle down, as if my life was unfinished business they were tired of carrying. The day I moved out, no one stopped me. My suitcase was light. My chest felt heavy. My father stood in the doorway and said, "Don't make this dramatic." My mother didn't come out of the kitchen. I waited for something, a word, a look. Nothing came. For years after that, there was quiet. No calls, no concern. I built my life slowly, carefully, like someone afraid of loud noises. I changed my number once. They didn't notice. Then, a few months ago, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, my mother's voice said my name softly, Sara, like it was something fragile she had almost forgotten. And for the first time, I didn't speak right away. I didn't speak because I wasn't sure if I wanted to. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, as if time had softened it in ways I hadn't imagined. "Sara, it's me," she said again, hesitation in every syllable. I could hear my father moving behind her, the scrape of his chair, the familiar calm in his voice trying to dominate the conversation. "Please, we just want to see you," my mother whispered. I stayed quiet. I let them talk, let them stumble over words that should have come easily years ago. And I listened. For the first time, I noticed the cracks in their certainty, the way they flinched at each other's eyes. They were smaller now, somehow human in a way I hadn't allowed myself to see before. I asked nothing. I said nothing, but I let them fill the silence with their own guilt. The weight of their voices, the pauses, the careful phrasing. They were trying to apologize without saying the word, trying to mend what they had torn apart. And I realized I didn't need their words. I had my life. My apartment smelled like the coffee I loved, not the burnt kitchen that used to smell like control. I had friends who called me by my name because it meant something, not because they were obligated. Weeks passed and their messages continued. Invitations I didn't accept, calls I didn't return. I watched them from the distance I had created, quietly noting the shifts. My mother asked questions she didn't know the answers to. My father's pride seemed thinner now, fraying at the edges, as if my existence, without their control, was exposing them. And then came the day my brother texted me. "Sara, Mom and Dad are asking about you. Can we meet?" My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I typed carefully, "I'm busy." I left it at that. Just 2 words. But it carried everything. All the boundaries I had built. All the quiet strength I had gathered. I could hear their reactions before they even saw the message. My mother's sigh over the phone. My father's silent scowl, my brother's uncertainty, and I didn't respond again. I didn't have to. The shift had begun, subtle and invisible, but unstoppable. They wanted me back in their lives, and I had all the control now. I sat by my window that evening, watching the city lights blur in the rain. My phone stayed silent, except for the occasional buzz of another attempt to reach me, and I smiled, not out of cruelty, but from a calm certainty I had never felt in that house, never felt in their presence, because they had underestimated me for too long. And now, finally, I was the one setting the terms, but I didn't reply. Not yet. I woke up that morning to another message from my mother. It was short this time, almost fragile. "Sara, please, we miss you." I stared at it, my coffee cooling beside me, and I felt no rush to answer. There was a strange satisfaction in letting it sit there, like a quiet pulse of power I had earned over years of being invisible. I went through my day slowly, deliberately, making small notes for work, rearranging my apartment, listening to the rain tap against the window. Outside, life continued without my family's approval, and inside, I felt steady. I remembered the girl I had been, the one who flinched at every sigh, who counted footsteps, who waited for a word that never came, and I realized how far I had come, silently, without them even noticing. By evening, my phone buzzed again. My father this time. Sara, we just want to see our daughter. That's all. Please. I read it carefully, then set the phone down. I let the message linger for hours. The tension in letting them wait, not out of malice, but out of control, was a quiet satisfaction I hadn't allowed myself before. I wasn't angry. I wasn't plotting anything loud or dramatic. I was simply untouchable. Later, my brother called. His voice was tentative, unfamiliar in its softness. Sara, please. I just want to see you. I miss you. I closed my eyes and breathed. I could hear the hesitation in his tone, the weight of years of neglect and assumptions, the realization that I was no longer the girl who would quietly accept their rules. I'll think about it, I said slowly. Nothing more. The silence hung longer than any word I could have spoken. As night fell, I sat by my window again. The city lights shimmered, reflecting in the wet streets. The quiet thrill of control pulsed through me. They were finally realizing that their neglect had consequences they hadn't prepared for. That my life, my calm, self-contained life, was theirs to miss, but they could not claim. And yet, part of me felt something unfamiliar. A flicker of memory, of old routines, of small, half-forgotten voices calling my name in anger, in love, in something I hadn't fully understood. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. But the memory was there, whispering through the quiet, reminding me that the story was far from over. I put my phone aside. I was safe, I was steady, I was finally seen, but they didn't know yet, not fully. And when they realized how much they had lost, how carefully I had built my life without them, it would be too late. And that night, I slept with a quiet certainty. I had won something they couldn't take back. Yet, I didn't call, not yet. The next morning, I woke to another string of messages, this time from both my parents at once, each one trying to outdo the other in tone, apology, longing, guilt, soft pleading. I read them slowly, letting the words roll over me, letting the quiet satisfaction grow in the spaces between the sentences. They thought their words alone could undo years of being invisible. They didn't realize that invisibility had taught me something far more valuable: patience. I brewed my coffee, poured it into my favorite mug, and sat by the window, watching the rain streak the city glass. Outside, people hurried about their lives, and inside, I felt the rarest thing I had ever felt in that house: control. They had always assumed I would bend, that I would return at the first sign of guilt, at the first tremor in their voices, but that Sara, the young girl who flinched at every sigh, was gone. What remained was deliberate, calm, unshakable. Later, I saw an envelope slipped under my door. No stamp, no return address. I opened it to find photographs, old family pictures, some from my childhood, some from gatherings I barely remembered attending. My mother's handwriting on the back of one simply said, "We're sorry. Please forgive us." I didn't cry. I didn't write back. I carefully set the photos aside, studying them. The smile in some of them was real, the warmth almost believable. And yet, there was also the distance, the subtle judgments frozen in the frames. That evening, my brother called again. His voice was shaky, unfamiliar. "Sara, I don't know what to say. We want to see you, please." I let the silence stretch, hearing the hesitation, feeling the shift in power that years of neglect had now reversed. He didn't rush me. He didn't demand anything. He simply waited for my response. And I let him wait, because for once, someone had to. As the day faded into night, I walked through my apartment, noticing the small things I had built for myself, the books arranged just so, the candles I lit in the evening, the quiet hum of music I had chosen for me, not for anyone else. Every corner whispered independence, every object a testament to my patience, my self-control, my quiet victory. And yet, there was a flicker of unease I could not ignore. They were learning slowly how much they had lost. They were beginning to understand that my absence was not a temporary inconvenience, but a deliberate distance I had maintained with care. The thought made my chest tighten, not with fear, but with anticipation, because they had reached the edge, and I knew that the next move would define everything. I picked up my phone again, scrolling through their messages. I didn't reply. I didn't have to, not yet. And in that silence, I felt it, the calm before the storm, the moment when all their regret would finally collide with the life I had quietly, meticulously built. But I stayed silent because the reckoning had only just begun. The morning sunlight fell softly across my kitchen, and I sipped my coffee slowly, as if I had all the time in the world. My phone buzzed again, this time a video call from my mother. I let it ring, let it keep ringing. I didn't move. I wasn't ignoring them out of anger. I was simply observing, waiting, seeing how far they were willing to go, how much they really wanted me back. After a while, my brother sent a message. "Sara, please, can we meet? We need to talk." clock. I stared at it. My finger hovered over the screen. I could type. I could answer. But what would I say? How could I condense years of neglect, silent suffering, and careful rebuilding into a single conversation? I didn't. I didn't even delete it. I let it sit there, glowing quietly, a reminder that I was in control. I went about my day as usual. My apartment smelled of fresh laundry and coffee. I organized the books on my shelf, straightened the photographs I had hung on the wall, and made a list for the week. Everything was deliberate, everything precise. I had spent so many years being told that I didn't matter, that my opinions were too much or too little. Now, every small act of care for myself felt like a quiet defiance, a soft revenge. By evening, my mother called again. I answered this time just to hear her voice. She spoke quickly, almost nervously, stumbling over words she had once said with certainty. "Sara, we've realized—" I didn't let her finish. I stayed calm, my voice even. "I hear you," I said softly. Nothing more. I let her fill the silence with her own uncertainty. After the call, I sat by the window, watching the rain blur the streetlights. I thought about all those years of silence, of being invisible, of waiting for a single word that might never come. And now, finally, I had all the power. They wanted to be part of my life, but only on my terms. And for the first time, I realized how deeply satisfying it was to let them wait, to let them understand, quietly, that I was no longer the child they could control. The night grew darker, and the city outside shimmered wet and cold. Another message appeared on my phone. "Sara, we're sorry. Please, just one chance." I stared at it, calm, unshaken. I didn't respond, not yet, because the truth was, I wanted them to feel it, the weight of what they had lost, the slow ache of realizing that I would never simply fall back into their hands. And as I turned off the light, leaving the city glowing behind me, I whispered to myself, quietly but firmly, "They'll have to wait. They'll have to learn." And in that quiet, deliberate moment, I knew the reckoning was coming. But how or when they would see it, that was still mine to decide. The next morning, I woke to another flurry of messages, this time from both my parents and my brother, each one carefully crafted, polite, almost pleading. I didn't read them right away. I let them sit there, glowing on my screen, each one a quiet testament to the control I now held. I made my coffee, sat by the window, and watched the rain drip slowly down the glass. Every droplet reminded me of the years I had spent feeling small, ignored, unseen, and now I was neither. By afternoon, my mother called again. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice left there, soft and tremulous, sounded almost human in a way it hadn't before. "Sara, please, just one chance. We can fix this." I listened, quietly, noticing the cracks in her certainty, the way she stumbled over words that should have come naturally. She was afraid now, afraid that I might never come back. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked through my apartment, noticing the life I had built for myself. Every corner, every object, a small monument to my patience and self-control. I had bought my own furniture, chosen my own colors, my own books. My home smelled like freedom, like quiet victories. And I realized how much they had missed, how blind they had been to the life I was creating even while under their roof. By evening, my brother sent a message again. Short, careful, hesitant. "Sara, we're begging. Please, can we see you?" I read it and didn't reply. I didn't need to. I knew the moment they realized how far I had gone, how deliberately I had built this distance, would strike harder than any words I could ever say. The weight itself was the punishment, subtle, patient, perfect. Later that night, I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I moved slowly, deliberately, and looked through the peephole. No one was there, just an envelope slid under the door. I picked it up and opened it. Inside were old photographs, letters, and a few small trinkets from my childhood, things my mother thought would soften me. I held them carefully, studying each one. Some brought a flicker of memory, some a pang of old hurt. And yet I didn't respond. I didn't call. I set them aside, arranging them neatly on my table. Everything was precise, everything deliberate. I had waited for years to be seen, and now they were finally learning, slowly, painfully, that seeing me didn't mean controlling me. As I sat by the window, the city lights reflecting in the rain, I realized how quiet this revenge had become. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was steady, inevitable, and fully mine. But the reckoning wasn't over, not yet. And I knew that when it came, they wouldn't know what hit them. The next morning, the tension was almost tangible. My phone buzzed again, simultaneously from all three of them. My mother, my father, my brother, each message carefully worded, polite, almost trembling with the urgency they had never felt before. I didn't open them immediately. I let them sit there, letting the glow of the screen illuminate the quiet control I now held. I poured coffee, stirred it slowly, and let the steam curl around me. For years, I had been invisible, small, careful. Now I was steady, deliberate, untouchable. By noon, my mother called again. I didn't answer. Instead, I listened to the voicemail later. Her voice was soft, hesitant, almost breaking in a way it had never done when I was a child. "Sarah, please, we've realized we made mistakes. Just one chance to see you." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I felt no rush, no fear. I had learned how to wait, how to let time stretch, how to let the weight of absence teach lessons they never thought I could. Hours later, my father appeared at my doorstep. I saw him through the glass, standing stiffly, carefully, trying to look composed. I opened the door slowly, deliberately, and let him speak first. He stumbled over words, faltering under the quiet authority of my gaze. The calm I had nurtured over years of being underestimated. He was no longer in control. My mother arrived shortly after, dragging her apologies behind her like fragile shadows. My brother lingered in the background, hesitant, unsure. They looked at me as if they were seeing me for the first time. Not the little girl they had ignored, but the woman I had quietly become. My chest rose and fell steadily. I felt the power in simply being still, in allowing them to approach me on my terms. I said very little, a nod here, a pause there. Their attempts at charm, guilt, apology, all of it washed over me. I let them fill the space with their words while I kept mine measured, calm, deliberate. The silence between us carried more weight than anything they could have said. And then, just as they seemed to grasp the breadth of their mistake, I looked at them quietly, softly, and said nothing. I simply stepped back, letting the tension hang like a curtain. They had finally reached the edge, finally understood how carefully I had built my life without them, and now they would have to reckon with the distance they had created, with the absence they had cultivated, with the woman who had finally outgrown their control. I closed the door gently behind me, not with anger, not with triumph, but with calm certainty. They were left standing there, facing the full weight of the life they had ignored. And in that quiet moment, I finally smiled. Because they would never take this from me, never. The reckoning was complete. The quiet revenge, fully earned.